Hi, I'm Reverend Ryk Brown. Welcome to worship here at St. James United Church in Waterdown, Ontario, Canada. This week, the world continues in turmoil, and we're going to be taking a break from talking about racial prejudice this week in order to talk about a different kind of prejudice as we celebrate Pride Sunday. Today's message deals with the stories of children, but some of those stories may not be suitable for all children's ears. So I advise you as parents that you may not want to have your young children hanging around for the message this week. However, if you are a parent or a grandparent, or if you even have children anywhere in your orbit in your life, then today's message is incredibly important for you to hear. So the Bible appears to say that homosexuality is wrong. It mentions it in about 6 passages, as opposed to the over 300 passages where love is mentioned. So it's true. There are a handful of passages that do say something about that. There, I said it. The Bible also says that slavery is okay. Yet the church stopped teaching that slavery was okay generations ago. Why is that? Well, we stopped teaching about it because we started listening to Black people who told us that that interpretation was wrong and hurtful. The Bible also says that women are inferior to men, mentions that in several places, yet the church stopped teaching that generations ago. Why did we stop teaching that? Because the church started listening to women who were telling us that that interpretation was wrong and hurtful. So why then do some churches still insist on teaching that being anywhere on the LGBTQ plus spectrum is sinful when it is not? Because we let our biases shape our interpretation of Scripture. And we refuse to admit those biases. And in so doing, we have taught children to hate themselves so much that they want to die. I want to share with you a story, a true story, that came across my desk recently from a young mother. It goes as this. I like to think I'm empathetic, that I'm open-minded. At 2, my child requested a princess dress, and without blinking, it was in the shopping cart. Their bedroom was half cars and half baby dolls and princesses. They liked singing and performing, so we signed them up for a musical theater program, and when the teacher said, "Oh, the boy costumes are over there," they didn't flinch. Pointed to a purple princess dress and said, "That's okay, that's the one I want." I don't believe clothes or colors or toys have genders. My husband and I have always made that clear and kept our choices open. One day, my husband called me on the phone and said, "Just so you know, this morning, Colton said to me, 'My life didn't turn out the way I planned. I think I should just stab myself in the throat.'" Oh my God, I have never felt a worse feeling in my body. How? How can a 5-year-old who doesn't even know a fraction of what the world is or what life or death is even think like that? Did we do something wrong? How do we fix this? So I called the pediatrician, psychologists, friends. I went into panic mom mode, and then I paused and I spoke to my child. "Colton, Daddy told me something that made me sad. He said that your life didn't turn out the way you planned. What does that mean? What didn't turn out the way you planned?" Squirming in their seat, visibly bashful and nervous, my little kindergartner said, clear as day, I was supposed to be a girl, but I'm a boy, so I think I should just stab myself in the throat. As an open-minded and knowledgeable and as open-minded, knowledgeable, and empathetic as I thought I was, as much as I believed in breaking gender roles and stereotypes, I was not prepared for this. So we drove to the clothing store and we went dress shopping. And the whole way there, I told her about how she can be a girl, that people feel the way she does, that we have friends and family that were born that way, and people thought they were one way and they felt they were another. And I swear that there was a little light bulb of hope that went off in her brain. We went to the bookstore and bought every book we could find on the subject, and we read them together that night. And a week later, sitting on my bed, quietly reading one of those stories to herself, she said, Mom, thanks so much for teaching me about transgender. It really made me feel like I'm not alone. Now, please don't get me wrong. I've cried over this. I fell in love with a baby boy for years and had to let that go. I had to mourn the memories of naming my child and the boy things that she probably will spend the rest of her life trying to forget. I cried because I know that my child's life is going to be so much harder than other kids' lives now. I cried because I know I didn't understand before, and now so many other people who didn't understand are going to target their lack of understanding at my baby. But then I stopped crying, because as much as I feel I've struggled, it will be so much harder for her. And while we already have a few people in our lives that are vocally unsupportive, we have an incredible, amazing group of people that have never made her feel more loved. So, as the proud mommy of a 6-year-old girl, I'd like to introduce you to my daughter, Avery. That was her story. Now, where in the world does a 5-year-old child learn that they were made wrong and deserve to die? From adults. That's where a child learns that. These parents went out of their way to create a positive space at home, a positive environment, and yet somehow in those 5 short years, some adult's toxic worldview leaked into their world. Was it from one of the vocally unsupportive adults that the mom mentioned in her story? Was it from TV? Who knows where it came from? They may never know as parents where that poison got into their little girl's mind. But it's something that the Christian church has taught for generations, and we need to stop teaching it. We, the church, have taught children to hate themselves. And I am done being associated with that. Back in October, you may remember, here in Hamilton, I joined Voices Against Bullying after a grade 9 boy in Hamilton was murdered. But it wasn't just the murder that motivated me to stand up and say no more. It was all the stories of all the young children who had been bullied so badly that they wanted to end their own lives. By what we say, by what we do, by what we leave unsaid and choose not to do, we teach by example children who are watching us. And we teach them either to love themselves or to hate themselves. I found this t-shirt that I thought was a helpful reminder for me and others that we always have a choice. Why be racist, sexist, homophobic, or transphobic when you could just be quiet? Each of us has a choice to act in fear or a choice to act in love. And sometimes the loving thing to do is to be quiet and listen. I recently had a conversation with a good friend of mine named Alistair, and we were talking about church teachings about homosexuality. And I wondered if this might be one of the reasons that Alistair left the church many years ago, as so many others have done. And he said, I learned everything I need to know about Jesus when he said simply, love your neighbor. That's all I need to know. And you know what? Alistair is absolutely right. That's all any of us need to know. Love your neighbor. Jesus said, love God and love your neighbor. Nothing is more important than those two things. Everything else is commentary. I believe that we as human beings have a natural tendency to choose fear over love, and we need to work to overcome that. We call that natural tendency sin. And when we know that our sin is causing harm to other people, and we choose to do it anyway, then we call that evil. My work with bullied children and youth has revealed to me that learning hate at a young age teaches a child to hate themselves enough that they want to die. And LGBTQ plus and racial minorities are at a higher risk. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth are 3 times more likely to think about suicide than heterosexual youth, and 5 times more likely to act on those thoughts. Transgendered youth, double those statistics. And every hate message that they hear makes them 2.5 times more likely to commit an act of self-harm. The church has been guilty of teaching children to hate themselves enough that they want to die, and that should make us sick to our stomachs. Jesus had something to say to us about that. From Matthew 18:5-6, Jesus said, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And if any of you put a stumbling block before one of these little ones who believe in me, it would be better for you if you had a great millstone fastened around your neck and you were drowned in the depth of the sea." Those are pretty harsh words coming out of the mouth of the Prince of Peace. If you or I say or do anything that causes a child to stumble in their faith, like, say, expressing hate to them and making them want to kill themselves, then it would be better for you if you had a millstone tied around your neck and you were thrown into the sea. That's what Jesus said. Now, in case you're not familiar with a millstone, here's a picture of what a millstone looks like. You see the donkey in the picture for perspective on size? That millstone weighs about as much as this motorcycle. Imagine that tied around your neck. And you get how pissed off Jesus was when he was dealing with people interfering with the faith of children. So now you know. Now you know that homophobic words and actions and failing to confront homophobic words and actions when you encounter them get picked up by children. They're watching you. They're paying attention to you. And those words and actions, or lack of words and actions, can make them want to die as young as 5 years old. To choose fear over love is sin. And when you know your sin causes harm to others and you do it anyway, that's evil. Now, you cannot say you didn't know. When I suggested the idea of doing Pride Sunday this year, I got a little pushback. There were some people who were concerned that it might make other people uncomfortable. And I hope you see now why we should no longer let uncomfortable people dictate how we teach the love of Jesus. I was also asked if we have any LGBTQ plus people in the congregation. And I hope you see now why that shouldn't matter at all. Statistically speaking, of course, we probably have 5% of our congregation that is on the spectrum somewhere. The question is, do they feel safe enough to identify themselves in our midst? Or do they choose to keep quiet? The question really should be, though, are we sending a message to the LGBTQ plus youth and children outside our congregation who are not yet here that we are a safe place for them to come and experience the love of God? Are we showing the world that we love all our neighbors, regardless of race, gender, sex, orientation, or anything else that divides us as human beings? Or is Jesus getting ready to tie a millstone around our necks? So that's where this message was supposed to end when I wrote it a couple of weeks ago, until something life-changing happened. Because when you create a safe space at home where children can grow up to know the love of God applies to them no matter where on the rainbow God made them to be, then you never know what's going to happen. And it's important for you to know that I have permission to tell this story, and that it was this brave young man's choice to be here now. Can you spin the camera around and come on over? Are we in this together?
Yes.
Just over a week ago, I was helping my 18-year-old son, Hunter, fill out his university residence application online. And there were options where he could choose to make his residence experience more inviting. And he casually selected LGBTQ+, and then carried on as if selecting it meant nothing and he was just choosing 1 or 2 roommates. And after my brain caught up with my eyes, I paused for a moment and I said, "Hunter, is there something you want to tell me?" And he said, "Yeah, I guess there is. I thought about telling you sooner, but I really didn't think it was that big a deal." Well, it shouldn't be a big deal. But in this world, it is a big deal. And the fact that you were raised to believe that it is no big deal means that there is hope in this world. So last week, I moved from being an LGBTQ+ ally to become an LGBTQ+ parent. And now I have a deeper understanding of why they call it pride. God bless.